Oh, one guy, he can shoot. The other guy, not so much.
Where we gonna go to celebrate?
Uh,
Thinking Club Shay Shay.
Club Shay Shay.
Club Shay Shay, yep.
Get that stuff out of here.
And although they're very different in many ways, most importantly, they're brothers for life. And they always gonna have something to say.
That's exactly what's gonna happen. You gonna end up like Russell Westbrook. You gonna be just out. There we go. I got something to say and back again. Quaylen Q. Smith along with my partner Alan A.J. Ward. We're joined now by a friend of our show, Capri Jones. Capri, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Chilling and maintaining. Capri is joining us from Grand Rapids, Michigan. We want to talk a little bit about people and self-absorbed people, conceited people, as some people would say, and how that could have an effect on how you're viewed. Many people who are conceited and self-absorbed try to portray a certain image to make themselves more in a favorable light, or put themselves rather in a more favorable light in the eyes of the people they're trying to impress. This has worked in some cases, but in other cases it's proved to be detrimental. I, for one, think that more times than not is actually detrimental. Being so self-absorbed and putting so much time and focus into your looks or certain things of that nature, instead of being natural and authentic, actually comes off as disingenuous, or in other words, fake. Capri, I'm gonna come to you. What do you think? Tell me a little about this. Tell me a little bit about this.
So from a girl's perspective,
But
no
you're
one
a-
like.
Never mind. Go ahead.
I hate you so much. Yeah, from a girl's perspective, Q. No one really likes to be around anyone who is an attention seeker, or anyone who's like narcissistic, or they feel that the world just revolves around them. I agree with you that it's very negative. People don't like to be around people like that, especially those who already have their own insecurities. To be around someone who is so self-absorbed. I don't think it's anything wrong with loving yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone should love themselves. Self-love is positivity. But it's when it becomes to the point where you're conceited and, you really don't care about anyone else's feelings, especially from a girl's perspective. Like, girls are obviously more sensitive and emotional towards certain topics. And when you portray that you're better than someone else, or, this is all about me, I need this attention, I may look better than you, or I may be better at something than you are, a hobby or whatever it is, it's negative, and it can be detrimental to your reputation, but as well as to the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely, and I 100% agree with everything you said. And you made a point when you're talking about people. There's a transition. There's a fine line between self-love and conceited. Like I myself, I've been on both sides of that line, to where I've been, into, self-love and like taking care of myself and actually taking pride in the way I look. I've been on the other end where I've been conceited, although I've never had a reason to be conceited. I mean, you see me, I'm sitting here looking 7 months pregnant, but that's neither here nor there. I don't even know why I brought that up. But there's a fine line in between both. You have to find that balance, because not having enough self-love is actually just as detrimental as having too much self-love. Because when you don't have that, you lack confidence. People take advantage of you, or can potentially take advantage of you. And that's, no good. But having too much of it, not having that balance, having too much self-love and becoming conceited, as I was, for whatever reason, it gets people to dislike you and look at you in a not favorable light. You become hard to deal with. And even if you're not narcissistic by nature, you display some of those narcissistic characteristics. Damn right, look at me. But when you start to display that, then people don't want to be around you, and you become an outcast, which is, just as not beneficial. Alan, jump in there a little bit.
Yeah. Like you said, you gotta have a balance. It's gotta have some self-love, because if you don't have any self-confidence or self-love, those are the people who go into depression and even commit suicide, unfortunately. So you have to have some, but you have to have a healthy balance of it. Nobody wants to be around a person who is constantly thinking of themselves. Those people tend to have no friends, or if they do have friends, they're not good friends, and their friends probably don't respect them. And if they don't respect them, I mean, if their friends also, they might also have friends that they let them step on them. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, that person that's conceited, they kind of rule over their friends, or like the boss in their group, and they obviously their friends have no self-confidence as well. So it's just not, a good quality to have. Conceitedness, definitely not.
Absolutely. So let's transition just a little bit and let's talk about this. And Capri, I'll come to you first on this one. But as it pertains to people like that may have those tendencies, how do you think somebody can avoid those tendencies to be conceited or to have too much, and I know this sounds bad, but too much self-love? What do you think?
I think it first takes for you to take a good look at yourself, and then also those around you. What do other people think about me? Sometimes you have to look at yourself through someone else's eyes and just say, like, am I perceived as someone who is self-absorbed or conceited? And then how can I change that? But can I just add something?
Go ahead.
Sometimes people get accused of being self-absorbed when they're actually not, but by the person who accuses them themselves may have certain insecurities, or maybe wish to be more like that person, and that person is themselves not self-absorbed, they're not conceited, but the people who look at them, maybe they already have some type of jealousy, or or someone has a trait that you wish that you had, and the person themselves is not conceited, but it's just the person who is perceiving it, or the person who is saying it is themselves are the ones who are, jealous or have a certain insecurity.
No, that's actually a really good point. And I like the point that you made about see, a lot of times we tend to look at things in our own imperfect vision, and true, everybody's vision is imperfect. I'm not saying somebody's vision is necessarily better than the other person, but people have different perspective and different angles that you may not have. So it's important to kind of look at yourself through the eyes, or potentially try to look at yourself through the eyes of others, as opposed to feeling like, okay, my viewpoint of myself is how everybody else views me. Because again, that's something that I struggle with, where I feel like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how I feel, and everybody else sees things the same way that I do. But come to find out, there were very few, if any at all, who viewed me the way that I view myself. And I'm always a big proponent of, if it looked like a duck, walk like a duck, quack like a duck, it ain't no mongoose, right? It is what it is. So, again, Alan, I'm gonna turn it to you, but again, we have to be practical, honest, and pragmatic in the way we assess these things. Alan, quit snickering at me. Go ahead.
Oh man,
pragmatic. I didn't know what any of those words meant.
Yeah, nobody does.
Practical? Come on, man.
Him in the dictionary. That's the only people who know. But no, yeah, you gotta have a balance. Like, there's a scripture that talks about seeing others superior to you. You should always view somebody as superior to you. Anybody that you come across, like if you're in a conversation with somebody or a group of people, if you have the viewpoint that the person sitting next to you or the person across the room has a better viewpoint than mine, even if they don't, if you have that viewpoint, then like eventually you'll cultivate that humility. And people love to be around those types of people who, I'll defer to you, I'll defer to her, I'll defer to him. So just having that mentality, practicing that mentality, not trying to control conversations, not trying to control narratives, and how people do things. So
yeah, and people kind of view that as a weakness when you defer to other people and you kind of, again, try to see things from other people's perspective. You acquiesce in certain ways, and that it's not a weakness. And Alan, you make a good point. Even if somebody's opinion is not necessarily valid, just trying to see it through their eyes, or at least try to see what they have to say. We're not saying be naive per se, but you want to at least give other perspectives a fair chance. Now, if it's, you know, not practical or it doesn't have any basis for being correct, okay, now that's one thing. But if you don't even give that other person's perspective a shot, or you don't self-reflect or ask people for their opinion and honest self-examination, that's when you start to cross that line, because now you feel like your opinion is more valuable than anybody else's, or everybody else's is invalid. And now we cross that line to where you're conceited anyway in thought, word, and deed. We're going to leave it right there. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back right after this with more. I got something to say. Booyah!